Okay, I know we started the budget conversation, and I would love to finish that, but then I do want to get to a conversation about career progression for marketing as a track in our space. So those are the two topics remaining to cover today. We talked about budgeting and prioritizing budget. Zeke, I think you had some really good ideas to kind of close us out there. I'm wondering if that sparked any additional conversation for you all around budgeting specifically.
I think from Zeke's perspective, it does start with what is that end goal. And we do very, very similar approaches to, Timothy, your notes on how we are looking to go towards one same goal. If it's very easy to navigate, if it's like a 4-point bullet of where do we want to head, what's our vision, start there. And then from there, now let's look at the objectives for how does marketing play a role in this? How can we as marketers make sure that we are moving the needle into this organizational goal, and how do we do that collectively and collaboratively? From there, we develop the business plan. We start with the business plan, and then from there, how are we going to do it? Because the budget is your resource. It is your tool to accomplish the goal. So you can't budget until you have your plan set in place and how you're going to create that plan. So that's how we prioritize our budget from a marketing perspective, on making sure that the priority is never lost when we're in the weeds of a budget, because we are certainly in the weeds right now. We're getting that big number next week, and it's the same thing. Here's your number. You are expected to know the priorities and how to put that budget together. And if you have a strategic plan set in place, you have a business plan set in place, it makes it that much easier to know exactly how you're going to prioritize, how you're going to put those buckets. And it is so important to leave room for that contingency, that innovation budget, because things do shift consistently. And it's so important to have that line item in your budget so that when opportunities do arise that you may not have known about, or if you see a shift in the market and you need to up your campaign dollars because something happened, you have that room to pivot. So that's, for us, in a nutshell, how we put our budget together.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I will say this about budgeting and vendors. By nature of what we do, we all get a ton of phone calls, emails from vendors. We got this great thing, we really want to talk to you about it. Again, we've all been there. But sometimes it's really important to take those calls. Even when we may not want to. I think it's our job as CMOs to understand all the opportunities that are out there. Sometimes we may be stuck in a rut and somebody offers something that is just different that we hadn't considered before. I won't say the vendor, but I was at DI. This vendor came up to me. They came to the session I was in. He just kept trying to find me, and I kept trying to do this. Because I don't always want to have those conversations when I'm at a conference. This is way more beneficial, honestly, at times. But I took his call, and I was pleasantly surprised with what they had to say. And so we're considering maybe doing a campaign with that particular vendor. So I think just have to be open, because we don't know everything. We don't know every product that's out there. And so if we close ourselves off, we may be missing something that's really great for our destinations. And it may fit within that test and learn budget opportunity that you may have.
We also do that, like a test and learn approach and an ongoing audit with our agency as well, right? We've got the budget we handle in-house, and then we've got what we give them. But even what we give them, we hold back within there for a testing budget, and we sit down every month and say, how are we doing? Can we shift, add, whatever? So we try to make sure that both internally and then with what they have, we're flexible. And then we're looking at the reserves and what do we have and how do we stay nimble to be able to take advantage of things. So I think that if people don't do that, I think that's another good tip. It doesn't just have to be, if you have a good partnership with your agency, you can work with them to understand that we don't have to have everything allocated behind the scenes right out of the gate. Let's just hold on to some stuff and see what comes our way. So just depending on your financial, yeah.
I agree, same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we usually have about 10% that's set aside for experimental, new, or it just varies. And that probably happens in different areas as well. From a media plan perspective, we've often allocated something for like new or held contingency, held back. Big ideas, sometimes we called it the Big Idea Opportunity Fund. But it also helps us if things are soft, what I've been able to deploy those funds multiple years at a time where we needed that extra boost at times. And so perhaps it didn't always go to something really exciting and a new opportunity that came our way, but it was deployed in the most needed moments.
Can I ask a question about that? So to me, we go all in on brand awareness and the funnel of that. But I love just kind of a tactical campaign that's really about driving bookings or what have you. Do y'all do something kind of, I guess, similar to that?
Well, there's different. There's just different campaigns and things running at different times, and from there we're looking at the funnel strategy as well. So there's media that's deployed specifically to be always on or more awareness generating, higher funnel, and then others for the traditional consideration, conversion tactics. I would say the majority of the budget is in that high awareness.
Timothy, we run. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We run campaigns that just drive midweek business. So those type of campaigns. And I'm sorry I jumped on you on that. But
please do.
You made me think about my approach at DI because I'm always avoiding. But our fiscal year starts July 1. So I have all my media bought by July 1, so I don't have to go through all that. But similar to Zeke, I bring on 1 or 2 vendors a year and give them a $50,000 tryout. And if they perform well, then I'll bring them on and maybe move somebody else out. But I have 2 budgets, one for the TID and one for RRT. So sort of balancing, I could use one vendor over here, one vendor over here, but I buy it all at the beginning. Now I have a slush fund, I call it. In one of my...
Too late.
Quack.
In one of the line items, there's some money built in there in case we want to do something special. Yeah, slush was not a good word. Innovation fund. Quack. Yeah, quack. Yeah, quack that big time. Yeah, but that's how I've done. And you make me think I should be more. I do answer emails and just the first time and take those calls. But the one way I can get rid of a lot of vendors is, can you drive midweek business? No. Okay. But we have they don't all have to drive midweek business, but I'll think about you, Timothy. It may have been the same guy that was chasing me down at DI.
Well, I mean, you got me thinking about that as well because, like I was telling Trish before she left, I have an AI response to vendors, particularly ones who don't take no for an answer the first time. Because if I know I'm not going to work with you, move on. But some are very persistent.
I wanted to put that in my email message, and my boss wouldn't let me. You can't do that.
AI has helped me craft. Please say this in a nice way.
And I know they have jobs. A lot of my friends are salespeople. So,
on the vendor side of things, you guys are all CMOs. You all work with multiple vendors and specifically agencies. I've got to tell you, the RFP process in our space does not set up the agency-client dynamic for success, not even at all. And you talked about, Emily, having the objectives first and then budgeting from there. RFPs, if you make it a list of tactics that agencies are supposed to fulfill on, you're going to get an agency that feels like the partnership is based on the tactics they're performing instead of the outcomes that you're looking for. If I was built, and by the way, I know procurement has rules and restrictions and stupid legality and all that kind of stuff. But if I was hiring an agency from your chair, I would say, this is the objective I want. Build me a plan to get there. And then I would get out of the way and see what the agency comes up with, because that's actually where you find out if the agency can be creative and different and unique, or if they're just going to do a list of tactics. And I know you want to compare apples to apples, and that's why we have the list of tactics in the RFPs. But when we were talking earlier about the shift that needs to happen from strategist or tactician to strategist, if agencies are going to get paid for how they think, and you're not allowing them in the RFP to show how they think, how in the world are you ever going to have a successful partnership with that agency? And so the one thing that I'll tell you from the agency side that I think needs to change is the way you hire agencies. And as long as you're giving them a list of tactics and expecting them to be strategic, it's not an agency problem.
And I would say I agree, but also from the client to agency side, can you not give me 100 pages of like overview? Can we just get to like the meat of the proposal?
Entirely fair. In fact, I would also never issue an RFP without a page limit if I was in your chair.
I would also say, they want to limit you to 3 concepts when they come back with idea. That's fine if they're good and they're creative, but I've built in language now that, I can get more concepts than that.
We had an agency who didn't want to give any concepts, and I said, cool, like, more power to you, but it's like not the right fit. And I think to your point, right, like, we very much we are always looking for big picture strategy thinkers. We can pull off any tactic. We're fortunate we have a great internal team that can do a ton of stuff on the fly, but we're looking for bigger and better ideas to implement. So yeah, I totally agree with you, and definitely agree on the page limit, which we implement.
Yeah.
So Adam, like a 2-page RFP, is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, I mean,
I know, that's what it sounds like.
Maybe less. Because the more box you build around what the response has to be, the less creative the response can be. So, I mean, I know it's crazy. I would say, this is the budget, this is the outcome, that's my RFP.
Love that.
I treat the RFP, so you just got our RFP, and the RFP
And it was really short.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, because I learned when we wrote RFPs at Visit Savannah, I didn't know what an RFP was. So I was just like, let me just explain what I'm trying to accomplish and what I think could happen, and all the qualifiers that say, but don't be beholden to my thoughts, because that's why we're hiring you. It would be like hiring a surgeon and saying, but I think you need to do it like this, even though I didn't go to school for any of that stuff. You would never do that. And I'm trying to evaluate how you think. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, Adam, I also very much agree with that. Our agency, we have a contingency that we keep internally with our budget, and there was a pivot that we needed to have. We just received direct air service to Denver. And that's a huge opportunity for Corpus Christi and how we're going to start marketing and do a huge campaign in the Denver market. So because we know that this is going to be a really significant opportunity, I immediately call up our agency and tell them, this is my plan, this is how much I have for my budget. Come to me with the best ideas you guys got, and as far as how we're going to pivot in Q4. What are like from a funnel perspective, like how are we going to shift? Please just provide me that information, whatever it is that you can help me with. And gave them the opportunity for a full strategy. And that's where we put most of our conversations in with the agency, is help me from a strategic perspective. Internally, we have we have graphic designers and everything in-house. So that's where a lot of the tactics lie, because we already have ruled out exactly what they can do. But for the agency, help us with the strategy, especially in uncharted territories. And they came back with a gorgeous plan. So now we're I said, I have no notes. This is beautiful. You helped me think beyond where I can think from that capacity. Because again, like that's what they're there for. That's what an agency should be able to do, is be your strategic partner.
She just one-upped you. She put nothing on paper. So she just called with the RFP, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
I concede. I concede.
They're already
I like her version
AOR.
better.
Already the AOR, but in your day-to-day, that's what you want. So how do you apply that to an RFP? Got to find a way to do that. It's been a minute since we've done our RFP. It was pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the recommendation on how long you should work with an agency before you decide to reevaluate?
Diminishing value. So over the course of a relationship with an agency, the two of you together build a metaphorical box. By all the things you said no to, or all the things they didn't want to do that you asked them to do, and you'll get to a point where you're like, we're not getting anywhere together. And that's when it's been too long. And so I think different agencies that do different things, the timeline's going to be different. But if you start to hit the diminishing value that you're getting in the relationship, and it kind of feels like a chore between the two of you, and by the way, if you're feeling it, the agency is too, that's probably around time. It's time to move on. Okay, I'll get off my agency soapbox now.
No, it's good. It's going. Yeah.
I want to take the opportunity, because I think it's rare that we have a group of CMOs gathered together in our industry like this, to give back to the people in the space that would like to be in your chair someday. And so I think what got you to where you are today may not necessarily be what's going to get the junior marketer of tomorrow into your chair, because everything's evolving so much. And so I would love to hear if any of you have tips for the younger generation that's coming up that would like to someday be a CMO. What helped you, but then also what's going to need to be different for them to get into your chair someday?
I would say start with understanding and getting a good handle on the tactics right now, because you're going to learn when you move into this role that that's the least of your priorities. It's the strategy, and then there's this third thing that you're not thinking about in your seat right now, which is the people management. The majority of our time is spent managing our teams and our people. It's not even in the marketing. And when it is in the marketing, it's in the strategy side. So if you're early in your career, get a real good handle of the tactics, so that, as we talked earlier, as you advance to grow, then you know how to put the strategy together, because you got to figure that out quickly enough to have time on your plate to do what takes the most time, which is the people management. That'd be my quick advice. And then we've had a great win recently. Kristen Jarnigan, friend to many of us, friend of the podcast, right? Like, what an awesome move to climb the ladder from PR to marketing to head of Long Island, and now to head of Choose Chicago. Like, super, super cool. So there are many success stories of marketers climbing up the ladder. Not as many as we want, but I think as DMOs shift their priorities and their strategies as far as evolving from more than just a sales and marketing function, I think that's actually where we have an opportunity, and where the marketing side right now maybe has a leg up on the sales side for the future of who could be in charge of the DMO space. So I think there's a cool opportunity right now where maybe 10 years ago, if you're out there competing for the CEO role, if you're the marketer and you're against someone that's coming from a hotel sales background, it's game over. But I think the game's changing.
So I would say, to your point, learn the entire organization. Learn sales, learn PR, learn even about visitor services.
But that's not my job.
Oh, gosh.
I push back when people say, that's not my job. When you're in an organization that's a people-first culture, you can't ignore the people at the front desk. I personally think that everybody should work at the front desk at some point, because you need to understand what people are asking. And so to me, when you figure out how to understand PR, communications, understand how to sell for your sales team, like what they're looking for in ads and all those different type of things, y'all have done a great job with that in Richmond. Those are the things that will set you up for success. But to his point, it's people management. Learning how to talk to people, allow people to express themselves, learn how to respectfully say to them, I love your idea, but that's not where we are, so that people don't feel devalued from conversations. Those are skills that honestly are hard to be taught. Either you have them or you don't. And I think you just got to be honest about that. People think they want things, but they're not equipped to do them. And that's just the honest truth. And so if you want to grow, I also think you got to be adaptable. You got to be willing to do some different things, challenge your thought process. I think if you do those things, I think you can move up into any organization and be successful, because you've built a foundation of what that success could look like. Also, we were having this conversation earlier about if somebody can be really driven by tactics, they can move into strategy. Those things to me are hard to do if you haven't been a foundation of figuring out how to grow into a strategy role. I think, again, part of me thinks either you have it or you don't. So, but I think you can grow it if you're willing to invest in yourself educationally to do that.
I would say look for the gaps and take initiative. Do more. Like, don't just be the order taker. Be the person who does just a little bit more. And every time you do just a little bit more, you're showing your worth. You're showing your mind. You're showing your abilities. When we spoke,
will you talk about what Cameron did?
Well, when Cameron had the Banana Week idea, and so she could have just sat here like we're, having, like, say we're here having our Marcom meeting, and we're just, oh, I got this cool idea, But she built a whole presentation and put, memes in it, and everything was appealing and made all these puns, right? And
Love it.
got us all engaged. And she didn't have to do that. She took that extra little step, that extra initiative to just do a little more. And it showed me, she's thinking about things. She's not taking my order to do this. And so for me, and I've always been a strong believer, for myself even, that's how I've gotten and moved up, is I kind of did just a little bit more than what I was asked, where I would express my ideas and not be afraid to. And I think taking risks is a huge part of it. If you're not willing to take a risk, you're going to go nowhere. Period. And it even means when it says, I think I can do that. I think I could take this role on. I don't know, should I be leading this team? Okay, let's try it. Why not? For me, that's everything.
See the gaps and try to fill them is a great way to progress.
I've often told my team, in order for you to grow as a leader, to even want to grow into your leader, think of your boss or your boss's boss as a client. If your boss is a client, how would you inform them? How would you appease them? How would you make sure you're doing everything you can to make them successful? If you think from that perspective of my boss is actually my client, they start to change how they think and how they relay information on. Here are some proposed solutions. This is my suggestion. What do you think? If I were to have all my team do that instead of just, I don't know, or you tell me, would someone working with a client do that? No. They would actually propose solutions and say, this is what I think we should do. So it forces them to think like a strategist and gets them at that level of thinking a little bit more. But I also have encouraged my team, you got to lean in. You got to lean into this industry. You got to lean into the organization. Find things that you can leverage as resources or as mentors. If you can find a mentor in this space, use it. There's wonderful programs. There's 30 Under 30. There's multiple mediums of information, podcasts, blogs. Find things that are maybe not in your scope, so that you can elevate in that space. Because if you are just prone to that's not my job mentality, you're never going to grow. You're going to stay exactly where you are. You have to be able to adapt and be driven to the point of punching a little above your weight class.
Yeah, I agree with every single thing that everybody said. And the only thing that I would add into it, just from my own personal experience, is not only taking risks, but for me, I wouldn't have had the career opportunities if I wasn't willing to move for them and to relocate for them. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I have plenty of friends and plenty of colleagues that want to stay in one place because they have whatever their own personal reasons are. For me, I would not be sitting here in this seat if I've literally moved cross country. I think I've lost count 5 times, literally from DC, LA, zigzagging. And for me, that was a big piece to the puzzle.
Yeah, I would build off that, Scott. I love that. But you don't even have to leave the same city. You can just change jobs to build. I've been in 6 different industries, only been in 2 cities. So the other thing I would say, that imposter syndrome, get it out of your head, because that holds back so many of our young people. Each one of us, every job we took, we were an imposter. We were just faking it a lot till we made it. So don't let that hold you back. I would also say take public speaking classes, because the people that can stand up and make a presentation are going far. So and don't be afraid to ask your boss whether you could be promoted or for a raise or that sort of thing. But I do think they're going to have to move to really go up the ladder if you're blocked. If one of us is not leaving for several years, you want to be a CMO, you may have to move somewhere.
I'll second the public speaking thing. We have 5 kids, me and my wife, and we have made them all learn public speaking, and they're really good. And I said, guys, it doesn't really matter what you know, become an expert, but if you can't communicate that simply and succinctly, forget about it. Like, you're just going to be a practitioner all your life. But if you can communicate that, because it's so rare and increasingly rare in a society that's like stuck on their phones in dopamine overload, man, golden advice, like so valuable.
What age did they start?
4 years ago.
Whoa,
So
okay.
6 through 11.
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Anything to
think
add, Diana?
I'd add to that with not only being a good speaker, be a good storyteller and understand stories, especially if we're talking about a CMO role. I think we've heard some of the themes, be scrappy. I think you should be willing and generally curious about the different roles on the team and how you can help and want to help. And that's a great way for people coming up in this industry or, wanting to do this will learn more. You should be able to work the front desk and care about your team, be a great team player, and help them and add to the ideas. You got an idea that sparked from a problem they're trying to solve, talk about it, share. We encourage our team to be good team players. We want them to be scrappy, innovative, customer first, know the customer, always be testing, that's pushing the button, the envelope, I should say, for what's possible. Those are all super important things. You just have to stay curious, be learning. I've been around a while, and I'm still curious. I like hearing stories about what other advertisers and marketers and brands are doing. And I've been listening to podcasts back in the early days. So it's, and I enjoy that. So I want to know what's new, and I'm not afraid of change. And I think we need to nurture that more in people coming up in the industry.
And I'll just say, people want to advance, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to do the work if you want to advance. And so people want to come in and you want to be director of PR and you've never written a press release. We have to give them opportunities to grow. Also, one thing I believe in is right now with my team, I'm looking at who can move into different roles if somebody leaves, And so I'm thinking, I could do this and I can do this. Or maybe there's somebody else we're watching from the outside to bring them into the organization. I think we're strategists, right? So we got to be strategizing about our future of our teams at the same time. But those folks who come in and just think they should just jump into leadership right away, no. It's not about because it wasn't our path. It's the only way that you can grow and be able to do it effectively is to put some work in the trenches and build yourself up. But nobody should be handing you a management role to manage people when you've never managed anything in your life.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I think we kind of touched on it in a couple different ways, but like one extremely solid, like fundamental piece of advice for someone earlier in the career, if forget it, lower on the ladder climbing up, you have to be solutions oriented. At our role, we can't go to our CEO can't come to us and ask us what to do, and we can't say that we don't have an idea. We can't push the paper back across the table, in that regard. So if you are already of that mindset, and you're not thinking whenever there's a problem about ideas. It doesn't have to be a good idea, but if you aren't idea, and solution oriented now, then that's going to hold you back because we can't say no. We can't not have a solution or an idea, and I think that's one thing that I've seen a lot in people coming up is they're either not wired that way or they're afraid to, or for whatever reason. But you can't not have an idea.
It takes zero skill to point out the problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It takes a lot of skill to come up with a proposed solution. And one of the things that we've talked about a lot in our organization is if you see a problem and you're going to escalate that problem, say what you think needs to be done to solve it as well, right?
Yeah.
And then to your point, Allison, with Cameron, Timothy said, I'm always strategizing, okay, if such and such a person left, how would I fill that role and who on the team would be capable? That's why you don't wait until the role's open to show what you're capable of, right? Because you need to demonstrate that you have the capability to be there if something happens, because we're all playing the what if game on our team and trying to decide what we would do in that crisis
cross-training
situation.
if you can on those roles.
Yes. The last thing that I'll say is, if I was going to give advice to a young marketer coming up, you need to learn AI inside and out and use it to make you 10x efficient and capable compared to anybody else. There are people right now that are 22 and 23 years old that may be CMOs by the time they're 29 because they can accelerate their career just that much with what they're capable of. And so I would tell somebody, learn the intersection of strategy and AI, and if you can do that effectively, you're going to race up the ladder. Race up the ladder. Yeah.
One thing I'll add, it's kind of piggybacking off what you said about them being the client, is that if people don't understand the value you bring, what'll happen is you'll be that phenomenal person that's undervalued and not appreciated, and you leave and they replace you with 3 people because you were overproducing, but you didn't do a great job of selling yourself or presenting that value. And so I think in the spirit of them being your client, you have to understand their incentives. Like, I want to know, my boss, how do you get your bonus? And how does what I do connect to you getting that? And I'm always aiming and fine tuning toward, I'm trying to get your bonus. Because if I'm serviceable to you like that, you can't lose me. And not only that, you're gonna elevate me 100%.
My job is to make my CEO's job easier. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing it wrong.
What I also like seeing is when I first came into the industry, I was told if you want to be a CEO, you got to come up through the sales side. I think you might have been talking about that. Now that's because a lot of people came from the hotel industry and they all came from the sales side. But now I'm seeing more CMOs getting promoted. Some CFOs, I think, are getting promoted. So I think it's open for anybody. If you want to move again, if you're pushing your, if you want to come cross country again, Scott, you do. But I think, you shouldn't be pigeonholed just because you're coming up.
And don't be afraid, to your point, to leave the industry, even if you don't leave town, and come back. We talked earlier about professional development, growth outside of our industry is key, right? So don't be afraid. I did this. Don't be afraid to leave tourism for a little bit for the end game. Play the long game, right? It's okay if you don't want to leave Anaheim, then you can go work somewhere else to kind of get some of that next level of skill set that you're looking for. You can always come back, when the job opens up and becomes available,
And I've seen a lot of people go to vendors and accelerate their learning over a few years and then come back as well. In fact, I think that bounce back has been pretty significant with people bouncing back to the DMO side.
Our director of marketing took a sabbatical, she calls it, and went to a vendor and came back. I worked at Airbnb for 9 months or so till COVID hit, and it was the best thing I ever did for my career because it taught me not only it's still hospitality, but it's a tech company. And I learned how a tech company operates, and it's very quickly, and it's decision making, and really just everything's much faster. And I took that with me.
Awesome. Well, you guys, this has been amazing. I think we're going to wrap CMO Jam there. This has become something already, just with today's conversation, something that I definitely want to do again. I mean, we covered a wide breadth of topics here and had a lot of interesting conversation. And I really appreciate each of you being willing to take time out of your trip to Esto and to come sit down and chat with us here. It's been incredibly valuable, and I think it'll help the next generation of people that are looking for how do you progress in your career? How do you market a destination effectively? I think we covered a lot of the things today that will be tools that help them. So thank you all. Really appreciate it.
This is the best CMO conference I've been to, really, because I think you mentioned it. We don't get that time together over a day. We're running around. So this is exceptional. So thank you, both of you, Zeke. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Tourism Economics for sponsoring.
So what stood out from some of the conversations today? I would say that we do have a lot of similar challenges happening right now, but there's a lot of great opportunities that we all have as well, with whether it's the change of AI and what's happening around the world and how we can kind of lean in, experiment, learn and try new things. And I think the future is bright.
Key takeaways, I think for me, we're just really continuing to evolve how our industry is using AI, how we're continuing to expand on our role within the communities that we represent. Yeah, those I think are the big ones.
The CMO is willing to be involved in advocacy. I think that's really a big takeaway for me today. And also we need to think about how the results that we drive, how they build community stories that can then be able to apply to our stakeholders and to our community to understand the work that we do and the value that we provide to our communities.
Today I was hoping to learn some ideas from other DMOs and CMOs. I'm a curious type, so I'm always wanting to know the next best thing out there and how I can disrupt back-end Richmond.
My perspective on everything from the state of a DMO didn't necessarily change, but in fact empowered me more. And knowing that I'm not alone in what I think, I'm not alone in the feelings or the challenges that I'm having in my space. So if anything, it's actually empowered me more so to continue leaning in and continuing to have these conversations.
I didn't know many of the people in the group, knew of, but not personal level. And so I think I have formed some new relationships from this. So that's an amazing thing for me. This industry is all about relationships and who you know and who you can lean on and trust. I think we uncovered topics that weren't on the agenda that certainly give more depth to it, and we could continue and go on and on and on, you know, if we had more time. So that's an awesome indicator of success, I think, as well. So I was very pleased, above and beyond even my initial expectations.
I think it changed my thinking a lot. You know, when you hear from people that are doing the same job as you in different destinations, you can't help but take away some new ideas.
I think I had a preconceived notion that we're always, for whatever reason, in the tourism industry and hospitality industry, we're behind. And I think in this case of AI that we are at least sticking with it, maybe not ahead of the curve, but we're definitely embracing it. And so that was a good takeaway for me.
I had high hopes coming in, and then as I walked up and I saw the cameras, my expectations sort of changed a bit. I was worried that I would feel nervous. I was worried that the group would feel a little nervous, but it seemed like we all jumped right in, and we're very comfortable, very open, and I learned a lot. So expectations changed, exceeded expectations significantly.
I think some of the surprises were some of the things that I thought perhaps were maybe just going to be unique to me, especially being one of the few states in the room, everyone is experiencing. So there is still that parity there. I also think that we started the day feeling a little bit more doom and gloom, and I do believe that by the end of the day, if we did a pulse check, we were a little bit more glass half full on things. So I think that was one thing that was really kind of cool to see as we move throughout the day, is that we, I think, talked ourselves into believing that we've got a path forward and that there's still excitement and optimism, even though there's a lot of headwinds, facing our industry right now.
I'm going to implement getting in touch with my peers more often. I think, like I had said before, I often get siloed, get so busy in the day-to-day operations. It's going to be good for me to reach out to these peers of mine and other DMOs to just kind of bounce ideas off of them. So that will be it.
I think it's really important that we understand all the perspectives of DMOs and our roles, and really be not afraid to challenge those perspectives, because in doing so, it helps us be able to better build opportunities to engage our community in meaningful ways.
I think the biggest takeaways is going to be connecting more often with my peers. Knowing that we all have very similar challenges and issues that we're all working towards, and we have a collective ability to come together and have some awesome solutions. I really want to take more time to lean into my DMO peers and have some conversation a little bit more.
The big thing for me is, as a state DMO, I've got to find a better way to figure out how we can help our local DMOs with that stakeholder engagement. I can't sit back anymore and just say that's definitely a local problem and something that's best tackled at a local level. It is, no doubt. But there's certainly something that we could do more than I think we are right now at a state level to help our local DMOs with that. And so I'm really going to be challenging myself to figure out what's the right role and how much more can we push in to maybe help them with what is arguably one of the biggest challenges that every city DMO is facing, or county across the state of North Carolina right now.
This worked because of the size of the group, the caliber of the minds at the table, And then honestly, the facilitation. I think, Adam as a moderator was fantastic, and that helped to keep it going. That helped us to avoid rabbit trails, even when, I threw out a dark one, that was kind of funny. But yeah, I think all those things work together, and now I think I don't know what the team is gonna do with this content, but I can only imagine, because that size works, there's gonna be a lot of demand for getting a seat at that table, which is pretty neat.
I would definitely recommend other marketers and leaders to participate in this type of conversation in the future.
Would I recommend a session like this? Absolutely.
I'll tell you, I wanted to be part of it when I heard it was going on, and then I saw the list of people going to be here. So it's an all-star team, minus myself, and I wanted to be part of that team.
I would highly recommend that people lean into this, especially in our industry. Have those conversations, find places where you can workshop and network and have open-ended conversations, because you never know what you're gonna get out of it. I definitely agree. I definitely recommend that people do this.
You gotta be here. This is, I don't know, once people see the content, I think they'll realize this is an exclusive group, this is a high quality group, this is a group that has, probably 100 years or more of experience collectively, and you've got some of the best minds, people that know what to avoid, what to do, now trading ideas and kind of collaborating. You totally want to be in that room.
You should do more of these events so that I can be invited back, grandfathered in, and attend them every year. I think it's a cool opportunity to come together in a small, perfect, numbered size setting and have some good honest dialogue and feedback. If the number gets too big, you lose that dynamic. If it's too small, it's not as engaging enough, and you don't get different points of view. So I definitely think it should happen again, and I definitely think that it should happen more often.
Because brand Revolt has stood out to me as a content producer, quite honestly. We thought about it, we talked about it, we debated, and at the end of the day, it wasn't about the biggest agency or the most number of DMO clients per se. It was who is doing best in class work with what this is supposed to be. And frankly, that's brand Revolt. That's one of the reasons that really contributed to why we wanted to be a part of it. And we want to be a part of it in the future because we thought it'd be good. So I think the future of this sort of format is there will be a jam for each function in an organization. I think there could be a jam for each management level. And I think there could be a jam that is cross-functional that would be really fascinating. For instance, historically in CVBs, the sales and marketing teams are siloed. If you could somehow bring those groups together without starting a fight and help facilitate how they could better work together, that content would be, it probably, if you could keep them on point and it could be a game changer for the industry.